Hello and welcome to race 3 of season 11 of the All Assists Off League at a very wet and rainy at the moment Miami track. We're going to be racing around the track of Miami across the Hard Rock Stadium as well this evening for you to see just who can take the top spot of the Drivers' Championship, as we do not have the current championship leader AMS Johnsy here with us. He won in Vegas, he won last week in Qatar, but we are across the pond back in the United States of America for race 3 of season 11. It is wet, which means the intermediate tyres are expected for a lot of these drivers at the moment, and we are on board with Peter Caspi. We do have quite a few driver changes just to let you know about here ready for race 3, so we'll start with those just while some are out on a couple of warm-up laps and out laps at the moment. Skid Solo joining Peter Caspi out on track at the moment. The Red Bull of No Danger David is joined by D. Perez, who is down at the moment in the 18th place. We've got Alpine of Racing Wheel 027 racing, I believe, on his own this afternoon. Maverick 09 and his teammate, the No Sabo, are teaming up for the McLarens. We've got the Ferrari of Peter Caspi, who we are on board with at the moment. And as it stands, it looks like he's going to be teaming up with VSM Sandman once again, of course, in third place in the Drivers' Championship at the moment. And, of course, the Constructors' Championship, Ferrari sit down in fourth place at the moment, having won it last season. T-Bran in fifth place, of course, in the Alfa Romeo alongside Toxic ZZ10. We've got the Mercedes of RS0121 alongside Quincy. Evor32, who got a podium position last week in the Aston Martin. He's going to be teaming up with Skid Solo. Pleasant Snake 13 makes a return to the Haas paddock alongside Sir Ibo. We've got Formula 1 Farah in the Williams alongside Kwan, and that almost makes up your entire grid. We've got Trugster and Frankie 1811 in the Alpha Tauri as well. So we are just on board, as I say, at the moment with Peter Caspi as he starts that final couple of corners heading on to the pit straight, of course, with the intermediate tyres and with the rain that we've currently got in Miami. So we've got a yellow flag already, and it looks like it is going to be one of the Haas drivers that is off track. I believe he's got back on track with no problems, and I'm going to say it is not Pleasant Snake, sorry. It is his teammate. I'm trying to find where the names are on this left-hand side. I am flying solo this week. There is no Dawson or Skin alongside me. He is on holiday, so I hope he's having a great time if he is listening. If not, then in a couple of weeks' time, when it's my turn to have a holiday, we'll be sure to know what's happening when he's flying solo. But at the moment, on board with Peter Caspi will be the first one to set a time lap. He goes into the DRS zone. The first DRS zone, of course, set in purple with a 36.9 in wet weather in Miami is not a bad time to be getting at all, with through 3 sectors and 2 DRS zones that we get here. Expect a lot of yellow flags in qualifying. Hopefully we don't get to see this wet and rainy weather throughout the race. We want a nice clean dry race for Miami, of course, what we kind of expect during the summertime in Florida, as we finishes, or comes up towards the finish, should I say, of Sector 2, the DRS zone into a very long straight, one of the longest straights that have been added to the Formula 1 calendar over the last couple of years, which of course is Miami. The track itself contains 19 turns and it's 5.5 kilometres. A lot of that is just taken up by this third sector as he goes purple, as we expected. In Sector 2, we've got a couple more drivers out there on track at the moment. Racing Wheel 027 and Danger David both out on outlap. So is Toxic CZ10 and Quincy of the Mercedes. We'll just see what time Peter Caspi is going to set for the other drivers to go out there and beat. We've got T-Brand, Formula 1 Farah, the No Sabo, Trugster, Frankie 1811, Sir Ibo, Skid Solo, all out there at the moment, and the time is 1:42.448 is the time for Peter Caspi's set for other drivers to beat. We are on board at the moment with T-Brand, who has started his timed lap at the moment, and Formula 1 Pro, we've just got on board with him just in time for that little spin there. Peter Caspi's time of 1:42.4 is good enough to keep him in provisional pole at the moment as Skid Solo sets a 1:42.7, and this yellow flag is causing a bit of trouble for Formula 1 Pro. He's going to have to do maybe another lap or finish this lap, or maybe even go into the paddock to change, or into the I'm trying to think of the words now, into the pits to change his tyres before coming out to set another time, as we are on board with the No Sabo, who will be the next one to set a time lap. It looks like at the moment, with DRS enabled, the rain might be easing, so we might get a couple of dry laps in before the end of this 18-minute qualifying session, as well as he takes the last couple of corners onto the pit straight. 1:42.4 is the time to beat for the McLaren. He sets 1:43.6, so 1.2 seconds off the pace at the moment, as Truxtun goes quickest on 1:40.112, and nearly beaten by his teammate Frankie 1811 on a 1:41.1. Nearly a second separates the two there, in fact, as T-Brand sets third place on 1:41.482. It's Peter Caspi on 1:42.4, now drops down to fourth place as Formula One Farah finishes that lap. He's now out on a second time lap, as this is 2 minutes it took him after a couple of spins there as well. We are on board now with Danger David currently second in the Drivers' Championship. He's gone purple so far in Sector 2, and he's on the long straight now, heading in towards the end of Sector 3. Last couple of corners with 1:40.112 to beat. He just got moved to the side there by D. Perez, who's out of his way on his out lap. So see just how the Red Bulls have done after the first race. It looked like a bit of a spin there from the back end, and it looked like there may have been a little bit of a collision with one of the Mercedes there from Danger David. I think he's avoided it, and he's at a 1:39.5, which is an excellent time to set in the wet weather. So we'll join on board now with his teammate, who's just started his timed lap as well. So 1:39.5 is the time to beat. After race one, we sat down and did the interview with Danger David. For those that aren't aware, on the YouTube channel, he said this season, despite finishing second in the Drivers' Championship himself, this season is predominantly about winning it as a team and winning it as Red Bull, and they are currently only 5 points away from the current leaders, Haas, and with an excellent opportunity. The winner of the first two races, AMS Johnzy, isn't going to be racing this evening, which gives Red Bull an excellent opportunity. Also gives another opportunity for Mercedes and Ferrari to kind of close the gap there as Truxtun. It's a 1:39.058, 5 tenths quicker than the time that Danger David set, and it looks like we are getting closer towards drier tyres as an option. I think the rain looks like it has stopped. T-Brand just jumps up into third place over Frankie 1811 on a 1:39.6 for the Alfa Romeo there. And I think, looking at the way in which D. Perez is trying to take some of these corners, the intermediate tyres aren't quite going to have that same success, as 1:38.5 is set by Evor 32. Last week's finished second last week in the Driver of the Day vote. It was won by Quincy, who is currently down in 10th place. Of course, the Driver of the Day vote is voted by all of the drivers after the race has concluded. So we are on board with D. Perez at the moment. I believe he's going to be the next one to finish his lap. He is, and he's just coming round onto the straight now. If he is to stay out, that is, and he has stayed out, his time to beat is 1:38.5. He's at 1:39.2, which puts him 3 tenths quicker than Danger David, his teammate, but still leaves him some distance, about 8 tenths off Evor, who is currently the leader at the moment, as DRS has been enabled, which means it looks like there's going to be a couple of dry tyre options that drivers are going to be looking for. Now, those that are in the pits might just have a bit of an advantage themselves at the moment. We are on board now with Racing Wheel, one of the few drivers not to have set a time. He's currently driving through Sector 2 throughout the Hard Rock Stadium here in Miami, and the drivers that are still coming out are on the way out on intermediate tyres, so not quite ready for that dry tyre option just yet. We might see a couple of laps right towards the end. It's all about timing and if they can get the times correct, as the Nocebo's at 1:38.572, and the fastest lap now sits with Frankie 1811, as these laps just seem to be getting quicker and quicker on a 1:37.5. We're on Racing Wheel on the long straight now in Sector 3. He's got a couple of corners left to see if he can beat the time of 1:37.5. He's been given the benefit of DRS, which some of the drivers that have set times already hasn't had, of course, with the rain starting off this qualifying session. Onto the penultimate corner in Miami, as he heads round onto the pit straight, comfortably and confidently taking that corner, and his time is a 1:43.2. That's good enough to get him into 11th place at the moment. So, as it stands, after a lot of drivers have done their first laps, we've got Frankie 1811 start on provisional pole in the Alpha Tauri. We've got Evor 32, the Nocebo, Truxtun, D. Perez, Nay Danger David, T-Brand, Toxic ZZ10, Peter Caspi, Skid Solo, Racing Wheel, Quincy, Sir Ibo, and Formula One Farah to make up the drivers that have set a time, and Quincy has absolutely annihilated the time that Frankie got by nearly 2 full seconds. He's at a 1:35, and it's put him on provisional pole after a purple purple lap there as Maverick retires from the session down in 15th place, having not yet set a time. So, providing everyone else out there at the moment does go out and set a time, Maverick will be starting from the back position of the grid, as we are on board with RS 0121 at the moment, out there trying to set a timed lap. He's just gone past the pit straight onto his timed lap, should I say, his first timed lap of the session. He is out on soft tyres, so there's something with the printer on the left-hand side telling me that they're on completely different tyres to what the drivers are actually out there on, and he sets a purple Sector 1, unsurprisingly, on those soft tyres. So the rain's disappeared, the dry weather's now with us, and it allows the track a lot better grip for some of these tyres, some of these drivers as well. We've still got Pleasant Snake and VSM Sandman yet to go out there and set a time. They're both still sat in the pits with about 7 minutes left of this qualifying session. Of course, it's just one full 18-minute qualifying session, followed by a 50% race. We've had quite an eventful season so far. Back in Las Vegas, where we'd had multiple safety cars and couldn't really get much of the race going. In Qatar, I don't think there was one safety car, as I can recall. Hopefully, we'll be having the exact same here in Miami, and some excellent racing to follow it as well. As RS 0121 comes to end his lap, and he hopes to match, if not better, the time of his teammate, who currently sits on pole position. 1:35.5 is the time for him to beat as he goes round onto the pit straight. Excellent grip from them soft tyres, and he's hit it 6 seconds quicker, 1:29.3. So I'm now going to go around a couple of these drivers that are out there at the moment just to see better what tyres they're on, because all it's telling me on the left hand side is that they're out there at the moment on intermediate. So Evo is currently out on the soft tyres, and I think that's going to be what we suspect to see throughout a lot of these drivers. There we go, it's changed now. They're setting to soft tyres for everybody, so everyone's out on soft tyres at the moment as Evo comes to finish his time lap. He had a 1:38.5 as his best at the moment onto the pit straight and gives the option of DRS, and he hits a 1:38.5, so it's not quite good enough to beat his current time, which leaves him in 5th place at the moment. Quan 23 has taken 2nd place and separated the two Mercedes with a 1:30.748 as we see the eventual appearance on the track of Pleasant Snake and the current defending champion VSM Sandman, who had an horrific race last week. He'll be the first to admit that there was quite a lot of penalties that didn't quite go in his favour, and it led to him falling from, I think it was about 6th place all the way down to around about 11th. So the points that he gained was very minimal. It's good enough to keep him 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship so far this season, and it keeps him very close to the current top two, which is Danger David and AMS Johnsy. Now, VSM Sandman has just gone quickest in Sector 1. He has set a purple Sector 1 as he heads now into a couple of bends before taking the long straight to end Sector 2. We'll let you know just how close he is to RS 0121, who is the current provisional pole sitter. The second Williams, the former one Farah, hit a 1:30.786, so very similar times for the two Williams, which leaves them currently 3rd and 4th as Trugster hits a 1:30.6 to put him up into 2nd place. Just under 5 minutes left to go now, so if Skid Solo or RS 0121 are due to come out for another lap, the best time to do it is any moment now. If any times are set from Pleasant Snake or VSM Sandman, it does mean Maverick will start from the back of the grid, and Evo sits a 1:28.6. Excellent racing from him last week. He's continuing that fine form in the Aston Martin, and he's kept it very close to the Ferrari of VSM Sandman, who finishes a lap of 1:28.5. So less than a tenth of a second separates VSM Sandman from Evo 32 at the moment, as Pleasant Snake has headed back into the pits for whatever reason without yet setting a timed lap. So he's going to have to be quick with only 4 minutes left to go. You've seen it's around a minute and a half to get round this track in a quick lap, as we are on board with Sir Ibo, who tries to beat his 1:49. He does. He gets 1:33.4, which moves him up into 9th place as it stands at the moment. So currently on pole position, we have VSM Sandman on a 1:28.5, Evo 32 in 2nd place on a 1:28.6, and now in 3rd place, we've got Danger David on a 1:28.8. I've raced a couple of laps around Miami myself, just whilst we see some of these drivers head back into the pits, and it's one of one of those tracks where you could really see either medium or hard tyres working off in a strategy. You don't want to be starting on soft tyres, in my opinion anyway, at this point, as it looks like we've got red sectors from VSM Sandman. I thought it was a red flag out for a moment there. We don't have to worry too much about that, and we'll try and join a driver on board who is out there setting a time lap at the moment. I think we've got one with the Nosebo who goes over the over the stop-start line. It's a 1:38.5, remains as his best time. So it's Sandman, followed by Evo, followed by Danger David, followed by RS0121, followed by Frankie 1811, T-Bran in 6th place, Trugster in 7th, Quan in 8th, Formula 1 Farah in 9th, Toxic CZ10 in 10th, Peter Caspi in 11th, Sir Ibo in 12th, Quincy 13th, the Nosebo 14th, D Perez in 15th, now out on an outlap on a 1:39.2. Skid Solo still in the pits, his best time was set on intermediate tyres, he's not yet considered changing, despite his teammate being up in 2nd place at the moment. Then it's Maverick in the McLaren, and then Pleasant Snake 13 sits at the back of the grid without a time set, but he's just coming out onto his outlap now, as I believe we've got VSM Sandman giving yellow flags just in the end of Sector 3 as he heads in towards the pitch, just to make sure and make it clear for those that are listening, he's driving out of the way of a couple of drivers that are trying to get past on their time lap. So we are on board at the moment with D Perez, who I think will finish his time lap before Pleasant Snake 13, so we'll stay on board with D Perez, who isn't too far away from finishing this outlap, and I think just behind him is Pleasant Snake 13, so they'll finish at similar sort of times at the moment, as DRS has been enabled for him there. I've got quite a few more drivers coming out onto outlaps at the moment. Evo 32, RS0121, Trugster, Quan 23, Formula 1 Farah all out on outlaps at the moment as well, of course, as mentioned, Pleasant Snake 13, as here goes D Perez across the line to start his timed lap. We did have yellow flags. We've got a minute and a half left, so you'd say this is really now anyone that's finishing their lap, it's their last chance to get a good time in to try and heighten their chances for a top position start heading into this race. VSM Sandman with a time of 1 minute 28.5 is currently the time to beat, and he is out on an outlap at the moment as we've got yellow flags in Sector 1, and that is Danger David, I believe, just steadying himself around the first couple of corners. No need to rush or ruin or risk ruining any of those tyres, as he's currently sat in 3rd place, but it's nice and close at the moment at the top with a lot of these drivers, which means there's no room for error at the moment, and there's no risk that any of the top 3 can take all out on outlaps at the moment, believing there's a chance that they could either take pole position or multiple drivers could knock them considerably further down the grid as Peter Caspi retires from the session. In the Ferrari, he will start from, at best, 13th place, but it all depends on what Sir Ibo, Racing Wheel, D Perez, Skid Solo and Pleasant Snake can do. I'm going to hazard a guess now and say that Sir Ibo and Skid Solo will not be better in their times. They're not out on track. Toxic CZ10 and T-Bran are doing the exact same thing, so a risky little game from them, but they're going to see what happens with 17 seconds left. Last chance for D Perez. He goes around the last couple of corners onto the pit straight. Could probably open his DRS just before he crosses the line as well. His 1:39.2 was his best time. He's now at a 1:29.5, which is good enough for 5th place on the grid for him at the moment. We're now going to join on board with Pleasant Snake, who is on his timed lap. It's his final chance, and it's his only chance, so as good as a one-shot qualifying session for him as he drives through in the 2nd sector at the moment. VSM Sandman still remains out as it stands on 1st place with 1:28.5 as the time to beat. Very close between him and Evo 32. In Sector 1 we do have a yellow flag, but it's nothing to worry about as Formula 1 Farah is now retired from the qualifying session. No time for Danger David, T-Bran, the Nosebo, Toxic CZ10, Sir Ibo or Skid Solo to go out there and set any better times. Maverick retired without setting a time as we now reach the final DRS zone before the pit straight for Pleasant Snake 13. Been driving for the Haas alongside his teammate AMS Johnsy throughout this season as Trugster hits a 1:28.1, 4/10 quicker than Sandman to put his car on pole position as it stands, as we just see these last couple of corners now. Is this a chance for Pleasant Snake? He takes 8th place in the Haas, Pleasant Snake 13th. It's a 129.5 in his one-shot qualifying, but we do still have two of the top three, or what was the two of the top three drivers, still out there to set a time. We're going to start with Ivor, who's on a 128.3 and beats Sandman's time. Sandman, to cross the line now, takes a 128.3. Both drivers improving on their time, Sandman and Ivor, but neither can quite catch up with Trugster, who sits on a 128.1 and is currently on pole position, waiting to see what happens with Frankie 1811. He's the last driver out there at the moment to set a time, and he's going considerably slow, so we can say that it is going to be Trugster that's going to be sat on pole position, followed by VSM Sandman, and then Ivor 32. RS0121 takes 4th place. Danger David and D Perez put the Red Bull in the 3rd row. Frankie 1811 in 7th place, Quincy in 8th, Pleasant Snake 13 in 9th, T-Bran in 10th, and Osebo 11th, Quan in 12th, Former One Far at 13th, Toxic CZ10 in 14th, Peter Caspi 15th, Siribo, Racing Wheel, Skid Solo, and Maverick making up the remainder of the grid. So we are all set now, ready for the Miami Grand Prix. I think the understanding is after the chaos that we had last week in Qatar, we're not going to be having a formation lap. I think that was the outcome. Basically, for those that aren't aware, last week with the formation lap, what happened was the game glitched, it broke, and a lot of drivers got disqualified and kicked from the session before the race was able to really get underway. So the decision was made, and I think it's been stuck by, that there is going to be no formation lap heading into this race. It's just going to be a case of the drivers race straight away. So good clean racing, as we can see there. Everyone started, bar Quan, on the intermediate tyres and then moved across onto the soft tyres as the rain evaporated, and hopefully there will be no rain to be worrying about at all heading into the Miami Grand Prix and the race that we've got. So fingers crossed for a good race, fingers crossed for a dry race, and we'll see just what happens. Of course, the rules are as it is in real life. If the race is dry for full, you must use two of the three choice compounds, which is soft, medium or hard, throughout the course of this race. So it's all down to strategy in some instances, and that might just be the case if the Red Bulls are going to get past the Haas in the Constructors' Championship by the close of play today. Here we go then. So we do have the formation lap. Just found out that the reason Maverick retired from the race without setting a time lap was he was not paying attention, is the reason that he's given, and it's going to result in the McLaren starting in 19th place. So for those just joining us, on pole position is Trugster, followed by BSM Sandman, Ivor 32 in 3rd place, RS0121 in 4th, Nay Danger David and D Perez making the Red Bull 3rd row lockout. It's going to be Frankie 1811 in 7th place, Quincy in 8th, Pleasant Snake 13 in 9th, having set just one timed lap, should I say, in qualifying. T-Bran 1 in 10th place, then Osebo in 11th, Quan 23 in 12th, Former One Fara in 13th place, Toxic CZ10 will start from 14th place, Peter Caspi in 15th place, Sir Ibo in the Haas in 16th, Racing Wheel in the Alpine in 17th, Skid Solo in the Aston Martin in 18th, and Maverick making up the back of the grid in 19th place. We are hoping, touch wood, for no glitches considering what happened last week, and the formation lap is well and truly underway as we reach the halfway point of the track, with of course Trugster leading us around the Hard Rock Stadium here in Miami. A couple of weeks ago, or about 3 weeks ago, We saw the race in Las Vegas where AMS Johnsy won it from pole position. Last week, we saw in Qatar AMS Johnsy win it from pole position. If that's anything to go by, Trugster should be sat as the favourite. 3/10 quicker than VSM Sandman and Ivor, who both on their final laps beat the better times than they'd set before. But it still remains with Trugster out on pole position. Just going to look at some of the tyre setups that the drivers have gone for heading into this race. So on pole position, on the hard tyres, it's Trugster. He's followed shortly behind by the much quicker tyre of VSM Sandman, but with a lifespan that's much shorter, the strategies, of course, will be relatively different. Different strategies for the Red Bull as well that try and capitalise on the opportunity of now AMS Johnsy and close that gap on Haas. That gap is currently set at 5 points, so a good finish for the Red Bulls. And we could be looking at new championship leaders by the end of this race. We could also be doing the same considering the Drivers' Championship, which currently has Danger David in second place, VSM Sandman in third. So we're just waiting for the cars to all reach the back of the grid and get themselves in position. Any disqualifications, ignore these disqualifications. It's a glitch within the game, and they'll be back in time for the race as Peter Caspi is there, and it appears that a lot of drivers just shuffled around in the gaps there for a moment as Toxic has retired from the session and he's left. Racing Wheels done the same as it's lights out, and here we go. Around the first corner goes VSM Sandman onto the inside, takes the lead away from Trugster as Quincy is out now as well. He's retired from the session. I'm not quite sure what's going on. I'm not sure if this is a case of another issue. Yeah, I think it's going to be a case of a new lobby, I think, at the moment, looking at what's been discussed on the Discord chat. Yeah, I think the decision's been made for a new lobby, but the qualifying results will stand. So any drivers that are listening to this, leave the lobby and we'll prepare to go again, as there's a safety car out on lap 1, and that's no surprise considering the number of DNFs that we've got. And we'll do the exact same thing. So we're back in a moment with the new lobby, ready to bring you a full 29 lap race. Hello and welcome back to the Miami Grand Prix. We're hoping that everything is now set and ready for us to get things underway in just a few moments' time. There's been a lot of discussions in the Discord about different strategies to go for. The decision is, the big strategy is that moving forward there will be no more formation laps, because there seems to be a glitch every single time. Until EA manage to sort that, we'll continue to work with the issues that EA games tend to give us. If you are just joining us, it is Trugster on pole position, with VSM Sandman in second and S11.03 in third place, ready to get things underway. So it is the weather at the moment is looking like it's going to be dry tyre weather, but at the start of qualifying, I'm not sure if anyone was with us for that. They're still with us now. That was wet weather tyres. It was intermediates that it started on. And there was a lot of different strategies that people opted to go for heading into the race. As we started in the last formation lap, we saw a couple of hard, medium tyre options. We saw Trucks starting in first place on the hard tyres, where VSM Sandman would start second on the soft tyres in the Ferrari, and almost got the overtake immediately before the game crashed, and we've ended up starting back again in a new lobby. So hopefully, touch wood again, that things don't go south from here, and we'll have some very good racing. We'll just be interested to see if any of those strategies are something that drivers are opting to stick by, or whether there's going to be any changes in and amongst the teams. The Red Bulls will have a chance to close the gap on Haas, because the winner, who's won both races since he joined the All Assist Soft League, AMS Johnsy, is not here in the Haas, which means there's a chance that Red Bull can close the gap. But we'll cross over to the grid now as the lights are out and we are off, and on the inside goes VSM Sandman straight away to try and take the lead, and he's going to take it very comfortably as well, away from Trugs, who falls down second on the first corner. We do have a drive-through penalty for Pleasant Snake for jump starting the lights as well, so he'll have a drive-through penalty that must be served in the opening 3 laps. There's 29 laps under the Miami, across the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, should I say. We are underway, and VSM Sandman on the first corner continues what he did at the end of last season, and that is taking first place, as Kwan has retired from the session. He's spun sideways with a lot of damage, and that's seen him out, as we've got a virtual safety car. We're on board with Skid Solo now, with Peter Caspi just behind him. And it looks like Toxic is going to get a time penalty for speeding under the virtual safety car as well, from 14th place. So there's going to be no overtaking at the moment. It's not yet a full safety car. Hopefully that won't be the case. We saw more than enough safety cars for the season in race 1 in Las Vegas about 3 weeks ago. So hopefully it's not going to be something that we'll see a bit more of a regularity for at the moment. We are on board with Maverick down in 16th place, but we'll jump across to the race leader of BSM Sandman, who is leading us around the track at the moment. Evo sits in 3rd place, RS0121 holds 4th place, and the 2 Red Bulls continue in 5th and 6th as well, as we reach a relatively long straight, the Sector 3 straight we'll call it for the sake of this, the final DRS zone before the pit straight as well. Of course, DRS not enabled on lap number 1. We just passed the DRS detection zone now, heading into the final few corners, and hopefully we see the departure of the virtual safety car as things can get back underway. It's not the case at the moment, as the entire track is yellow flagged, as Sandman holds first position. So a couple of other changes to tell you about them. So Peter Caspi's down in 18th place. Skid Solo is now. We've got the No Sabo, who is leaving the race. He's hit the wall on the way round as well. We'll jump just on board with Maverick. If we'd seen that a couple of minutes ago, as we can see, a couple are going into the pits as the No Sabo is now out. So in the first lap, we've seen a virtual safety car and 2 drivers. Leaders were on board with Maverick, who is heading into the pits alongside Racing Wheel and Toxic as well. A couple of changes that they're going to go through. We'll jump across to see the tyres that people have selected as well. VSM Sandman did continue with the soft, as it is now a full safety car. So what started with just a virtual safety car is now going to be given the full safety car treatment, as Toxic serves his penalty before changing his wing inside the pits as well on those hard tyres. Moving on to the hard tyres, if he can make those last the full 29 laps with this safety car as well, he will be in a very strong position, as VSM Sandman will be the one that catches up with the safety car. It'll allow Toxic to go past it, I assume, to allow things to get back underway. So Sandman, Formula 1 Farah and Quan were the only 3 that opted to start on the soft tyres. Trugster on the medium, Evo, RS0121, Danger David, Perez and Frankie, the other top 10 that have started on medium tyres. It is hard tyres for Pleasant Snake and for T-Bran, for Maverick and for Toxic. as Maverick gets an overtake there on Racing Wheel as well. I think he's allowed the position back as Racing Wheel will continue in 15th place as the safety car holds up at the end of turn 1. And I think we saw more than a fair share of safety cars in Vegas. I think it was 7 safety cars in total. We saw much more than that in one of the final races in Baku as we finished Season 10 in F1 22 before the release of F1 23, of course, as well. So we are 2 laps in. We're on the 3rd lap as we speak. Pleasant Snake still has a drive-through penalty to serve. I believe that penalty will be prolonged for giving him a longer time, should I say. He doesn't have to serve that on the 3 laps, is my understanding, if there's a safety car. But I wouldn't guarantee that. So Sandman holding first place, Trugston second, Ivor in third as we now catch up to the safety car. And he will lead us around the next couple of laps while the debris from Kwan's car is removed from the track. And Peter Caspi has now opted to pit as well on those medium tyres. He started the race on hard and he's moved on to medium from what it's showing here. I think that might be the other way around. Yeah, he started on medium and he switched to hard. So Peter Caspi leaves rejoins the track, should I say, in 16th place on hard tyres. So a lot of cars opting to pit right now. There we go, we can see the stops. A lot of cars starting to pit now for the hard tyres, use that strategy to maybe see it through. If they can go through the next 26 laps with no other safety car, it's a great possibility that they could get themselves some strong points finishes here. And Peter Caspi needs that in the Ferrari with his teammate out in first place at the moment of BSM Sandman, the 3-time champion defending the championship this year, and he's had another big battle from Danger David, who took him to the final race of last season. But the Ferraris really need to pick up as they sit 93 points as it stands away from Haas, who lead the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari on 178 points, Haas on 271 after 2 races of the season. Red Bull sat in between there as a Mercedes. Red Bull have 266 points and Mercedes 192. Not much gets said about the Mercedes, but Quincy took driver of the day last week. He's currently driving down in 11th place. His teammate RS0121 is up in 4th place as we are on board with Peter Caspi. Both him and Toxic were warming their tyres up ever so slightly there on this safety car, trying to make the best as they can, because if these tyres cool down you could lose all sorts of grip and it could make the remainder of the race very difficult. And on these hard tyres they're tougher to keep that temperature, that high temperature for, because they don't have as much speed as the soft tyre offers you. It's just more about longevity, I think the word is that I'm looking for there. Is Formula 1 Farah now and VSM Sandman are the only 2 that are still on track on the soft tyres, and we are on board with the Williams of Formula 1 Farah, who's currently sat down in 9th place. Looking for confirmation of that time penalty for Pleasant Snake. He has got, of course, an invalidated lap time from there as well. And a 5-second time penalty for Toxic that has been served. So it's just a drive-through penalty for Pleasant Snake. And as we are on the 4th lap at the moment, there we go. It's not going to allow me to rejoin the race, which should make this very interesting to watch. I'm hoping it's just going to be a temporary issue that is with us at the moment whilst we see the safety car going around. But it's telling me that this is the results of the race, and that should be interesting because the race is still very much going on at the moment. it would appear that we are racing once again, but it is not going to allow me to see any of that. So we are on a results screen at the moment, hoping that it gives us a bit more of a live update whenever drivers are overtaken. It'll be able to keep us updated, and it'll do that just as Danger David moves a little bit between 5th and 6th place with D. Perez, and this is going to be very difficult to try and keep an eye on based upon the fact that we're not going to be able to see too much racing. So I will try and get this fixed. I'm not quite sure why it is not allowing me to unpause and watch the remainder of the race, but it looks like it's something I am stuck with at the moment.